Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day to everyone. Hi boys and girls, how are you doing today? I hope all of you are in good health. Let me introduce myself. I am Noriza Awang from SMK Anderson, Ipoh, Perak. Today, we will learn about Introduction to Scientific Investigation. Learning about science process skill will allow you to be able to find solutions and make decisions systematically. Are you ready with your notebook and stationery? Let's get started. By the end of today's lesson, we should be able to first, differentiate each process skill. Second, make a sequence on the steps of carrying out a scientific investigation in the correct order. And third, conduct a scientific investigation to solve a simple problem. Now, boys and girls, on the table are 2 leaves of the gardenia plant. Let's see what the differences and the similarities are between these 2 leaves. The 2 leaves, the leaf on the right is leaf A and the one on the left is leaf B. Let's investigate together. What can you observe? Yes, you are right. Leaf A is fresh, whereas leaf B has dried. Let us investigate more about this leaf and see what is the process of investigation that we need to carry out. Yes, in order to complete the investigation, we need to use scientific process skills. Pupils, do you still remember the science process skills that you learned in primary school? Let's review them one by one. There are 12 important science process skills in a scientific investigation. Can you differentiate each skill? To make it clearer, let's revise all the skills together. The 12 science process skills are 1. Observing, 2. Classifying, 3. Measuring and using numbers, 4. Making inferences, 5. Predicting, 6. Communicating, 7. Using space-time relationships, 8. Interpreting data, 9. Controlling variables, 10. Defining operationally, 11. Making a hypothesis, and 12. Experimenting. Boys and girls, to start investigating, we need to observe. Observing is the fundamental science process skills. We observe objects and events using all our 5 senses, and this is how we learn about the world around us. The ability to make good observations is very important to the development of the other science process skills. Second is classifying. With this skill, boys and girls, you are expected to be able to sort objects or phenomena into groups based on your observations. Grouping objects or events is a way of putting order based on similarities, differences, and interrelationships. Thirdly, measuring with numbers. Measuring is important in collecting, comparing, and interpreting data. It helps us classify and communicate with others. For this skill, the metric system should be used to help understand the scientific world. What is inference, boys and girls? Unlike observations, which are direct evidence gathered about an object, inferences are explanations that follow from the observations. Why do you think it is important for us to be able to make inferences, boys and girls? Yes, that's right. When we are able to make inferences and explain events around us, we have a better appreciation of the environment around us. Next, we'll take a look at predicting. A prediction is what someone thinks will happen. Pre means before, and diction has to do with talking. So, a prediction is a statement about the future. It's a guess based on facts or evidence. Can I continue to the next skill, boys and girls? Next is communicating. For this skill, boys and girls, you will be able to communicate in order to share your observations with someone else. Your communication must be clear and effective if the other person is to understand the information. You can communicate your observations verbally, in writing, or by drawing pictures. Controlling variables means being able to identify variables that can affect an experimental outcome. Keeping most of the variables constant while manipulating only the independent variable. Defining operationally is a skill that allows you to state how to measure a variable in an experiment. Formulating hypothesis is a skill that enables you to state the expected outcome of an experiment. Next, boys and girls, is making predictions. Making predictions is making educated guesses about outcomes of future events. Just like inferences, predictions are based on both what we observe and also our past experiences and the mental models we have built up from those experiences. And lastly, number 12, boys and girls, is interpreting data. This means the skills of organizing data and drawing conclusion from it. The next science process skill is experimenting. What materials will I need? What steps or procedure will I take? What needs to happen to my prediction to be right? How will I know if I'm wrong? How will I measure it? Was my prediction right? If so, why? If not, why not? In other words, experimenting is being able to conduct an experiment, including asking the suitable questions, stating a hypothesis, identifying and controlling variables, operationally defining those variables, designing an experiment, conducting the experiment, and interpreting the results of the experiment. Congratulations, pupils, on your good understanding of science process skills. Now, let's carry out the investigation in a more systematic manner by using scientific methods. Scientific method is a systematic method to solve problems in science. Are you ready to enjoy a TikTok with me? Let's sing together. Yeah, you make it on your boy with love. Oh my mama, oh my mama. Me high so fast, 내 전부답게 하고 싶어. Oh my mama, oh my mama. Me fly so fast, 이제 조금은 나 알겠어.
yeah. 나도 모르게 힘이 들어가 기도했어. 높아버린 sky 커져버린 hawk 때로 도망치게 해달라며 기도했어. But 너의 상처는 나의 상처 깨달았을 때 나 다시.
Great job, everyone! Wow, you're having a great time now, aren't you? Boys and girls, guess what? We are missing something. What is science without experiments? Well, I have prepared an experiment that will help you to understand scientific methods. I think we should do this experiment together, don't you? Why don't you get these items ready and we will do this experiment together? A bowl of water, a piece of tissue paper, a piece of cloth, and 2 glasses. Pupils, let's identify a problem for this activity. Can you write the problem statement for this experiment? Yes, absolutely great. The problem statement for this experiment is: does cloth or tissue paper absorb more water? What is the hypothesis for this activity? Aha! I'm sure your answer is the same as mine. Cloth absorbs water more than tissue paper. How are you doing so far? Boys and girls, stay with me, okay? Let's find out how to write the aim for this experiment. Your answer can be to investigate the absorption of water between cloth and tissue paper. Good job, everyone. Now, my dear pupils, do you have any idea how to identify the variables? As you learn in primary school, variables can be divided into 3. Manipulated variables are the factors of change. In this activity, manipulated variables is the type of cloth, while the second variable is the response variable that change towards manipulated variable. In this experiment, the responding variable is the volume of water that is absorbed. The third variable is the constant variable. The constant variable for this experiment is water. Well done, everyone. Now, let's take a look at the materials and apparatus that we will use for this experiment. A bowl of water, a piece of tissue paper, a piece of cloth, 2 glasses. Pupils, how do we plan an experiment and then conduct the experiment? We show this in the way that we write the procedures. Normally, the procedures are written in the passive form. Let's start step by step. Firstly, the bowl is filled with water. Secondly, the piece of tissue paper is dipped into the bowl. Thirdly, the tissue paper is squeezed to collect the water in the glass. The volume of water is measured. Finally, step 2 to 4 are repeated by using the piece of cloth. Next, pupils, how are we going to analyze and interpret the data that we have collected? We can present it in a bar chart or graph. For this experiment, the best way is by drawing a bar chart. How are you doing so far, pupils? Stay with me for the next part of our lesson, okay? Now, let's try to draw a bar chart. Firstly, draw an x-axis and a y-axis. This will look like a large L shape. Secondly, label the x-axis. Thirdly, label the y-axis. Finally, draw your bars. Now, can you interpret your data? Pupils, finally, we need to state a conclusion. Aha! Can you guess the conclusion for this experiment? Awesome! You are absolutely right. The conclusion for this experiment is cloth absorb water more than tissue paper. Well, here we are, pupils. Assessment. Let's find out if we can answer some questions to enhance our understanding of the science process skills and the scientific method. Let's take a look at the question. Amira wants to know if fertilizer has any effect on the growth of plants. She has 4 pots containing the same type of soil. She puts plants in each pot and adds fertilizer to 2 of the pots. Which 2 pots should she compare to find out about the growth of plants? Can you tell me what your answer is? Great job, everyone. Yes, the answer is pot 1 and pot 3. But why? Because pot 1 and pot 3 have the same type of plant. In these questions, did you use your science process skills and scientific method to answer the questions? Yes, you did. What are the skills involved? Firstly, you had needed to observe. Secondly, you had needed to classify. Excellent, pupils. Now, before we go to the next challenging question, I would like everyone to please get ready. A scientist wants to find out why seawater freezes at a lower temperature than fresh water. He writes, if seawater has salt in it, it will freeze at a lower temperature than fresh water. Which statement contains a hypothesis? Aha! The hypothesis is, if seawater has salt in it, it will freeze at a lower temperature than fresh water. In which statement is the problem described? Yes, you are right. The problem statement is, a scientist wants to find out why seawater freezes at a lower temperature than fresh water. Now, how is the scientist going to conduct this experiment? Fill each of the 2 beakers with 1 liter of fresh water. Dissolve 35 grams of table salt in one of the beakers. Place both beakers in a freezer at a temperature of 1 degree Celsius. Leave the beakers in a freezer for 24 hours. After 24 hours, examine both beakers and find the fresh water to be frozen. Yes, there you are. Well done, everyone. Well, boys and girls, we are almost at the end of our lesson now. But before we go, let us recap what we have learned today. Science process skills involves 12 skills. 1. Observing. 2. Classifying. 3. Measuring and using numbers. 4. Making inferences. 5. Predicting. 6. Communicating. 7. Using space-time relationships. 8. Interpreting data. 9. Controlling variables. 10. Defining operationally. 11. Making a hypothesis. And 12. Experimenting. The scientific method involves identify a problem, control the variables, construct a hypothesis, plan an experiment, conduct the experiment, collect data, analyze and interpret data, make a conclusion, write a report. And lastly, we have carried out our scientific investigation to solve a simple problem. Well, boys and girls, our lesson has come to an end. I really hope that today's lesson can help you to understand and apply scientific investigation in order to solve your daily life problems. Thank you for joining me here today. See you again in the next class. Assalamualaikum and goodbye.